After a grueling 1 year of waiting, the Book of Boba Fett is finally out with its first episode titled Stranger in a Strange Land, and it gives just what the fans have been asking for by answering all the questions about how Boba Fett got out of the Sarlaac Pit and how he lost his armor. Overall, for a first episode, it was good, but nothing really blew me away. This isn't a bad thing, of course, but I really wasn't left all that excited after the first episode, even though I am taking into account that this first episode does have to lay a lot of heavy groundwork. The bulk of everyone's questions are answered in the first 6 minutes of the episode, and I thought that was very well done. We start off with Boba resting in a bacta tank where he starts having dreams from the past. This was probably the best choice to implement flashbacks, and wow did it work. Seeing shots of Kamino and Geonosis from Attack of the Clones was chilling and breathtaking, but what followed really freaked me out. We all wanted to know how exactly he escaped the Sarlaac Pit, and the shots that we got of that were absolute nightmare fuel. Having Boba just stuck in the dark with a decaying stormtrooper was something that really freaked me out, but seeing how he used his flamethrower to escape was the perfect choice. Unfortunately, that led to a few really terrible days for Boba's life. After crawling out of the Sarlaac, he fell unconscious, and later that night, Jawa showed up and took all of the armor off of him and left him for dead, where he would then be discovered by a unique tribe of Tusken Raiders that would then tie him up and hold him as a hostage of some kind. During this time with the Tuskens, he was beaten by the younglings, used to dig for water, and just dragged miles through the sand. Of course, seeing this is weird because it's Boba Fett. He's one of the best bounty hunters in the entire galaxy, but he's currently still starving and dehydrated, so having him fight back really isn't the easiest option. And it made sense. This was the best way to take a character with such a high fighting skill level and put him in a state of vulnerability that could be believable. One thing I did really love about this though is that the bacta tank reminds me perfectly of your character from the original Knights of the Old Republic. Every time they lay down and rest, they end up getting visions and flashes of what their next objective is, which is exactly what this reminded me of. It may not be directly related, but I appreciated it. After waking up from the bacta tank, Boba gets dressed and begins meeting with delegates who are sharing their respects for the new crime lord who has taken over Bib Fortuna's role. All of the delegates bring him offerings as a sign of respect, all except a Twi'lek who comes in to share the respects of the mayor of Mos Espa. And this was the part of the show that I did not care for. Everything from the character's costume to the way he spoke just felt so out of place and out of character. It was really hard for me to focus on the scene because it just felt so strange. It felt very generic and just didn't offer much in the scene for me. After receiving all the offerings, we finally get to see our large Tattooine city that we all started to theorize about. I myself was under the impression that it would be Bestine, the capital of Tattooine, but everyone in the show kept referring to it just as Mos Espa. So maybe the city was much bigger than we first thought after seeing it in The Phantom Menace, but Boba and Fennec make their way through the city to start meeting with everyone to explain that he is now in charge of the area and plans to make sure their businesses stay going under his watchful eye. This was something I really loved, because as he explains this, no one really seems to care. Boba used to be a well-known name, but now it almost feels like everyone has forgotten who he is, and I really love this. This is setting up for Boba to really make a new name for himself as a crime lord as opposed to a bounty hunter. It does appear that some people still know who he is and want him out of the picture, as he is met with heavy resistance from a group that surrounds Boba and Fennec with what appears to be vibro lances and some form of a plasma or electrical shield. And while the concept was cool, this was another scene that fell very short for me. Mainly the beginning of the fight. The choreography was just bad. I tried to take into account the fact that this group was attacking Boba and Fennec in a very synchronized pattern, and that there really wasn't enough room to fight back, but it still felt just very clunky and overall unsatisfying. I do like that Boba still isn't at 100% though, as he is only able to fight for a short time before telling his Gamorrean guards to get him back in the bacta tank, but even this gives me a small plot hole. Why is this fight so hard to do when he took out an entire division of stormtroopers in The Mandalorian Season 2, and stood around with Fennec and Din Djarin like nothing had ever happened? I know it's a small inconsistency, but still, it doesn't add up. The rest of the episode goes back to flashbacks of when Boba was still held captive by the Tuskens. He and the Rodian, who he is also imprisoned with, are dragged out into the dunes to start digging for water. Boba seems to be having no luck with this task, while the Rodian seems to be finding him left and right. Boba is successful eventually in finding water, and it gives us a great scene. He decides to drink the water for himself, angering the Tusken child that took them out into the desert. But even then, he's not weak enough to grab grab the Tusken's weapon as he attempts to strike Boba, saying, "Easy, youngling, I need some water." It's just a small scene, but I just really enjoyed how it played out. The final scene, however, was something I was not expecting at all. The Rodian continues to dig for water and manages to uncover a large monster hiding in the sand that proceeds to attack them. Boba instantly realizes that this is more of a threat than the Tuskens and springs into action, paying homage to Leia in Return of the Jedi as he does by choking out the monster with the chains he's bound by, earning the respect of the child and the whole Tusken tribe, showing the return and rise of Boba Fett. Overall, this episode was still good. If anything, I think I appreciate it more because I found some things I could make honest critiques about. Tamir Morrison is great as Boba and really brings life into the character that it really never had. After watching the show last night with both Star Wars Timeline and Star Wars on High, you can find links to both of their channels in the comments below, we agreed that none of this was really out of character for Boba, mainly because he doesn't have a character. His on-screen performances have been so limited that there really isn't anything that could be considered out of character for him, and this show is going to do a great job of establishing this. While some may argue that some of the show may be out of character because of how often he is used in the comics, I would say that it's probably just a change of his mindset after seeing what Boba had to go through to survive after his not-so-fatal end in Return of the Jedi. But that's everything I have to say about the premiere episode for the Book of Boba Fett. I am excited to have a new Star Wars show to watch again, and I will definitely be looking forward to this for the next few weeks. But what were your thoughts? Did you enjoy this episode? Is this exactly what you pictured this show to be? And more importantly, is it living up to your expectations? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments below. As always, be sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't, and remember, the Force will be with you, always.